Hello Tubesters, I've just put a video up on the marine bust just showing a bit of stippling. I'm just trying to show that it's, sorry the bust is here. I'm just trying to show that it's not massively hard. It might be an easy technique if you're put off from like wet blending and learning that, you know, different, well, probably need to use some glazes on it to soften it out in places, but to get people painting this type of figure, model, bust would be a better word, I just wanted to show it's not hard. You know, are we going to be like box art painters? No, you know, probably not. Well, some people will just take this like a duck to water and suddenly realise they've got a real talent for it. I've always said I don't have any talent, not even for making good videos. I just enjoy what I do, and I like to improve all the time. Yeah, so does Arch. I like to improve on, you know, when I'm doing my scale models, painting my war games figures. As I say, I don't war game now, but I enjoy painting the figures. I like to get better, you know. I like to see the end product, how I vision it in my head. So this stippling isn't hard, you know. Picking your colours, you know, you could start in this case with the guy I'm painting. You could just say, right, I'm going to use Gav's colours there as a starter, you know, just to learn if you've never done anything like this before. As I say, I understand that when people see a sketch, and you don't have to do a sketch if you don't want to, they look at it, you know, and you've got all these dark colours everywhere, especially the shadows, and it's like, oh no, you know, what's going on there, and how am I going to get rid of these big blobs of colour? Well, as I say, those colours are there to give you a foundation to work from. Do I get it right? Not many times, but using these little stipplings, so all you're doing is getting your brush, whatever size you want to do. This is I did say before, I think, I might not have done. This one's a size 0. I think I did a 3 to do the sketch with. But I'm using a 0, and I'm using the very point. It will be shown in the video. So yeah, I'm just flicking these videos up. When I've done something like this, I want to dive into it again and really get going. So there probably won't be another video until all of the whole flesh is blended to a degree, and then we'll look at it like that, and then we'll start what I call softening the blends up more. You know, if something's got too dotty, we'll put some glazes over that, or maybe some more dots, you know, as I call them. So stippling is the real word. So yeah, have a look at the video. The painting side of it isn't very long. I've just done a very small portion of it. I don't finish the area. It's just to show you roughly how you can transition your colours from that very stark base sketch into start to soften it up, and so it starts looking like the rest of the flesh. There's a photograph on there with the colours I've on the wet palette. There's a photograph of the bottles of paint I used. I do believe, yeah, I actually said the paints as well. They're all AK and Vallejo. There will be some other paints being used later on in the softening up stage, put some glazes on and that, but right now that's what I'm using. So before I sneeze, thanks for stopping by and showing some interest, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hello Tubesters, I did this last night. So I put a video up and I showed you the sketch, which you can still see on the rest of his face. So he's still, I'm desperately now trying to find a pointy stick, which I don't have. Oh Gav, no, oh well. Grubby finger, no, we can't use grubby finger either because it's not going to go in close enough. Right, let's use the other end of this paintbrush. So we've still got, obviously, all around the face. That's the original sketch I've done, and that's showing me roughly the shadow areas and the I suppose roughly the type of colours I'm going to be putting in around those areas. Now if you see down here, I've started blending, and the method I've used for blending, I've quite like this one, is stippling. Now when you stipple, you need to really be using the same thickness of paint that I showed on my thumbnail in the previous video. You don't want thick paint particularly. I mean, you're not trying to show textures in fabric or anything. What we're trying to do is, rather than blend two colours together, say with wet blending, we're literally stippling a million and one little dots, slowly in and out over. Let's go to a bit I haven't done. So this mark up the neck here, we would be stippling in and out, using various colours on my palette that I've chosen to blend that in, so it'll still be there roughly as, and bearing in mind this is really just a work in progress at the moment. This was about 2.5 hours, 3 hours work, so this is all up to about here has started to be blended with the stippling, more so in this area here, and I was starting to go up in the last 40 minutes or so up into this area. I want more shadow here with the overhangs of his different skin, his chest and whatever, and obviously where his collarbones are. But yeah, this is still, I mean, this is more forward, this is still lagging behind a bit, and obviously this hasn't been touched at all. So as I say, I'll when I start work, I've literally just picked this up to start doing some more painting on it, but I wanted to show you the progress so you can understand where I'm going with it, if that makes sense, so I don't jump too much ahead. I may, if I can, just quickly under the, because I say I can't, with the setup I've got, it's really hard to paint busts and things under the camera. I can't get enough light on the subject because the camera on the tripod blocks the light out, and it's just a bit of a nightmare to do. But I may just try and do some stippling, say in this area here, just to show you, the transformation as we go. So if you're really not confident in blending with, say, like wet blending techniques where you're moving one paint into another, stippling is a really straightforward place to go. Again, you wipe your paint off your brush. You don't want a big blob of paint on there, and it will give your skin loads of texture. Now this is then going to have glazes put on to smooth it all out, so that a lot of these dots won't actually be here when they've been glazed over. It's just a foundation, but that foundation gives you real depth to the skin because you've got so many minute dots of different colours going in and out of each other. What you're trying to do is obviously get a fairly decent transition between colours, rather than you don't want to see a straight line between colours, if that makes sense. One line butted up to another, so one colour butted up to another. The stippling technique will literally, obviously takes over, say, wet blending, where you're just moving one colour in, shifting it into another. You are doing that with stippling, but you're doing it in a minute way, in a really targeted way, and it takes a lot of time, but it'll give you a real depth, as far as I'm concerned anyway, in your skin or anything else you do, whether you're doing it on something else, but fabrics and that. Although fabrics, again, you can increase the size of the dots, or we'll cross that bridge when we get into the bit of the uniform we've got here. So I just wanted to show you that, just to say, well, this is what was achievable in a couple of hours. I don't know if we can get in any closer. Again, I'm having to film right on the bench, put a load of dark card around so the camera doesn't pick all the rest of it up on the bench. I don't know how good that's coming over, but as you can see, we had all this type of horribleness of the sketch further down here, and it's already starting to disappear. Obviously we've still got to play around with the shadows here, but I would still like some dark shadows where the uniform's coming over. you know, and I think you can just about see him there, and some darker shadows there. So we've still got to play around with this. You can see there's not a decent transition there. It's quite, goes literally dark and then into the next colour. We need to shift that with some more dots yet, but I'm looking at it with slightly fresh eyes this morning, and sometimes it's best to do that, just put it away. Even if you're painting throughout the day, you know, you just go and do something else for half an hour, or you know, whatever you want to do, but just walk away from it for a bit so you've got fresh eyes to come back to. So yeah, there we go. I shall crack on now. As I say, if I remember, you know what my memory's like, but if I remember and I can make it work under the lights, I will. I'm not going to do the whole stippling, I don't think, on camera. What I'll do is I'll do a bit and then switch it off, and then do a bit more filming, then switch it off, and crack on, because it takes a while. And but you know, you'll get the idea then how I'm. As I say, I am no teacher. This is just Gav's way. I learn as I go. I learn from books. I learn from just deconstructing other people's painting. You know, some of the you know, like the big painters out there. I just find my own way in painting, which I believe is probably the best way to go. You know, you can watch this video and say, "Oh, that's a good idea," and then take bits away that I've done, improve on them, or say, "No, that's rubbish, Gav. I want to do this my own way." You know, just take bits and pieces out of your painting, you know, and take it from there. Right, guys. Hopefully we'll get a bit more progress done. As I say, I've got a few days where I'm just, you know, when my wife said just take the week off and just do your own thing, just, you know, let your head calm down a bit, and so I'll probably push on with this. I've got a 1:35 scale Waffen SS figure, which I am basing at the moment. I've built the base up yesterday and primed it and whatever, so but I've said to myself that's just going to be a complete reveal in one go. I don't believe, apart from an unboxing, I don't believe I've actually shown that figure, apart from I'm showing it on Instagram and Facebook, but I'll do a video of that as a one-off. So yeah, most of the time we're going to this guy, then in the 1:35 scale, and I will carry on doing. Obviously I've got that regiment of plastic naps that I want to paint up to sell, so we're only 12, well, we're almost finished another 6 figures, and then we've got 6 figures more to go. So yeah, we'll be doing that for the rest of the week. How far we get with this guy, I've no idea. We'll just see where the paint goes. Okay guys, I just wanted to give you a quick insight into how I'm doing this stippling, for anybody interested. As I said in the last portion of the video I've filmed a short while ago, this is what it looks like when I've joined all the dots up, literally. Archie's not that impressed. Sorry if you can hear him grumbling in the background. You'll see different colours in there, and I've still got to add a few glazes in of different colours, obviously, just to smooth this out slightly. But basically all you're doing is using, hopefully I would have loaded up the photographs of the paints I'm using, which are base flesh from AK, beige red, orange tan, flat flesh, try saying that after a pint, sunny skin tone, and basic skin tone, and those 3 are from Vallejo. It's, as I say, I'm about to just try a bit around here just to see if we can show you what I'm doing, but it's again, that's up to you. I can give you colours and I can say this is what I'm doing and this is roughly how I do it. Bearing in mind, I'm no teacher, I'm not very good at bust painting and stuff. It's just to give, again, people maybe an idea of getting some courage to actually have a go themselves, because there are people that enjoy this type of thing. They just probably think it's a bit too difficult for them. So I'm looking at this area here. I'm not going to get in any closer, I don't think, because I'll start screening everything out, but just I'll keep shooting a close-up every so often. I don't intend for this to take very long. It's just to give you a basic idea of what the dots are like. So I'm looking at my wet palette. I've had a photograph on there. I can't, you know, again, give you what the paint colours are. I've given you them in the bottle. It's not hard to work out. But we're going to be looking at some flat flesh. No, not just yet. We'll use some of the beige red first. So again, you just saw roughly me wiping that off on the kitchen towel. So I'm going into the beige red. Sorry, I'm going into the darker skin tone, and with the tip of the brush I'm just doing tiny dots. Now it's not great for the tip of brushes, but them's the breaks, unfortunately. So what I'm doing is taking the edge off this dark, which is AK Shadow Flesh. It's a very reddy looking colour. If you're doing small enough dots and that, it dries really quickly. If it's starting to come up where you've either got water on your ferrule and that's the metal bit of the paintbrush, and it's dropped down a bead of water onto your brush, just let it dry out. What you don't want to do, and I did the mistake on my first, although I didn't use this stippling technique on the first bust I painted, which is Lucky Jack, which is my channel icon. I'll always keep that bust. It's my first one, and I keep saying to myself, like I do with some of my models, it's something to look back on. Very nice bust, by the way. That's a Young Miniatures bust. So we know that this is going to be a shadow area, so we want to put some darker colours in there, but still fairly warm. I mean, this guy's in the tropics. On his neck and that is where a lot of blood vessels are, so they're going to be a warmer tone than, say, maybe down here, it'd be a colder tone. And I will go along just slowly crossing the line, what I call like a demarcation line between this bright collar bone. I'm creeping the beige red in up to that, so I'm merging both of them in together. As I say, don't be tempted to put thicker paint on, because it'll speed things up. All you'll end up doing is putting even more texture onto the sculpt that you didn't really want. See, we've got some, although I've not particularly put a lot of shadow in there, there's more shadow in there. I think I used a bit of chocolate, a lot of beige brown on that. No, I didn't. Brown, oh no, one of the dark browns anyway I used. That's underneath this shadow red. Now if we want to go darker, I'm just wondering, do I want to go darker yet? We'll give it a bit of a darker. This is base flesh I'm now putting on, which is like a darker browny red from AK. Because we want to go darker on this bit here. So we creep up slowly, just slightly out of the shadow area, because what I'll be doing then with lighter tones is coming down into that shadow area. So you're gently cancelling, isn't the right words really, but you're gently cancelling out previous work, but it leaves a residue behind, if that makes any sense whatsoever. as I say, the dots are fairly random, and you will see as you go. I really like this technique. I got this from the Kirill Karnaev's AK book. Now, caveat there is, this isn't exactly how Kirill Karnaev would be doing it, or explains it in his book probably, but it's the idea is there. Now I've switched to the beige red here again. As I say, these busts, I mean, of course you can do what you want. It's your bust, just like, you know, a scale model or something. You do it how you want to do it. But what I'm saying is, you wouldn't be expecting to knock one of these busts out in a morning, or sorry, a day or an afternoon, or even a weekend. You know, it's be prepared to put some time into it. And slowly, very slowly, that is starting to affect the paint that we did as a shadow. I'm still on the beige red again now. I'm just crossing into this brighter collarbone area, just toning that very sharp edge down, and getting into this deeper crease of the neck join area. If that's, it's not a join in the model. The join is actually this whole head, and this part of the torso is connected. It's all in one. It gets slotted into the dog tags. Now we're going to go. I'm going to knock the video off in a minute and go back to painting how I want to paint. But I just want to give you a rough idea of what I'm doing. So where are we doing, Gav? This is flat flesh. I just want to give you an idea. As I say, I can't really paint under the camera like this. It's not particularly works for me, but and as you say, I'm not just sticking it to that shadow area. I'll go over a general area, because it literally, as you look at it, it just opens up ideas in your head where you want to put the colour. I mean, you'd hardly even see any paint going on there, and that's how I like it. You know, it's time consuming, but I find it, obviously I'll keep going on, I've got mental health problems, and I find it very therapeutic when busts are a bit Marmite to people, that they like figures more than full figures, more than busts a lot of the time. But I find busts have got a lot of personality to them, or the good ones have anyway. And each bit of paint that goes on transforms it from a piece of resin to a primed piece of resin to your sketch, and then you start doing things like this. And I really like how it just starts to take shape. Now, also with this type of technique, you can reapply a darker colour over it, you know. So if you think, oh, you know, I've made that too light now, well, you can either blend it in with more of these little dots, or you can go into a glaze, which is like literally tinted water, and change it that way. There will be some areas here that will have glazes put over, and I'll go through that in a bit. So I think we're going to knock it off for now. Let's see if I can get a close-up. As I say, I don't want this to go on forever. So as you can see, that's roughly the colour it was. Yes, there was a bit of brown in it in these deep areas here, but that's roughly the colour it was. And you can see we're just slowly changing it, a bit like we're doing here. All this is still a work. I'll literally keep going over as something dries, rather than use the hair. I do use a hairdryer on it, depending on like when I was doing the sketch, I was putting a hairdryer over it just to dry it off quickly. But all this area here will, until I'm really happy with it, I'll continue having more little bits and pieces put on it. I want to put some texture into the neck, where you get lines in the neck, as he's obviously looking round, so his neck muscles are there. This was a final highlight part of the sketch, this little teardrop shape here. Well, that's what I mean. If you look at that, it's a hard line of almost like a little teardrop shape. Well, your little dots will be crossing over that line backwards and forwards, and you will merge it in depending on what colours you want. Obviously, as it's telling us, that's marking it there as saying we'd like to see a brighter highlight, obviously, rather than a darker work down here. We'd obviously use lighter colours, but we'll probably use some beige red going up into it from down here, and maybe on the other side of the muscle group there. So yeah, I just wanted to show that. As I say, it's not difficult, and I do really believe, until you master, say, other things like, I mean, people might just pick wet blending up, say, straight away, and by all means you could just do all that with that. But I like the idea of stippling, because it gives us lots and lots of layers and texturizes the skin, if that makes sense. And as you can see, anybody can do that. It's literally, you need a fairly sharp pointed brush. You saw literally, let me just quickly, where are we? Right, so you're looking literally putting paint on about, where are we? Can you see that? Let's get it over there. You know, literally about there. That's all you need. And even then you're wiping that off on your, as you can see here again, this is today's stuff I've been wiping off already. So I wipe the excess off before applying it. If you do get too much on, you can do a couple of both ways. If you use a moist brush, you can just either have a moistened brush that just sits there waiting to do that. So if you put like, oh, it's all, we've got a bit of a pool of paints there, you can take it off with a moist brush, or even the one you're using, quickly put it in some water, get the excess water off on a towel, and then you can just wick it away. You know, and as I say, what we don't want is what happened with my first ever bust. When you look at Lucky Jack's face, not so much on the thumbnail, because luckily you can't really see it, but I was trying to blend in and get me glazes, and what you end up doing is scrubbing the surface of the skin, well, surface of the bust, but you know, the skin, and it literally polishes it, literally buffs it up, so you don't particularly want that really. So yeah, there we go, guys. I'm going to do all that area I've been working on off camera, and I'm carrying on working around here, so next time you see it, we may have got the neck done, or whenever I'm going to stick the camera on again, but you'll see at least that shadow area is being worked into something like, you know, something like this type of place. Right, onwards and upwards.